Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Hey, I wanted to talk to you guys real quick about something that we did during the production of the Stardew Valley Trials, actually. It's now the very beginning of April, so it's been like half a month? A month? I don't know, since the last episode aired, since the finale. First of all, thank you guys again so much for the response of the trials. That was like honestly a once in a lifetime opportunity to get such an awesome bit of feedback and just like such a good response from so many people about something that I really cared about. When I started the trials, I really in the back of my mind, besides just wanting to make something that was entertaining, I wanted to make something that was like truly like I tried as absolutely hard to make something as good as I possibly could, and that was the trials. And I think it paid off, and I think a lot of people appreciated that. So thank you guys all there. I kind of alluded to the fact that I would be talking about this after the trials were over. I meant to do it like right after the trials were over, but honestly, kind of time just slipped away from me, so I'm just doing it now. We, during our production of the trials, ended up needing to make a change that was, in my eyes, an entirely necessary change that it kind of sucks. It was kind of a tough situation that we were in during the production, and so I figured I would just kind of go through that and talk about it so that you guys would hear directly from me sort of what we ended up doing. Since a lot of people have asked, especially while the trials were still coming out, like, hey, has this is it scripted in any way? Like, how is this determined? Blah 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 blah. And my answer has always been that the actual like gameplay and like who they decide to vote out, the fact that they don't know the challenges ahead of time, like their performance in the challenges, none of that is scripted in any way. And the only thing that I actually scripted for that was like when I was talking to them, saying like, today you'll be doing this challenge. Like that was recorded after the fact. I just made sure that they understood what the challenges were when we were actually together recording. It's different explaining something to a viewer when they have like the visuals and the whole competition's already been done versus explaining it to people who haven't done it yet. And so like that sort of stuff I ended up scripting. There was one thing though that we ended up needing to change. Unfortunately though, that was like actually like genuinely there was one thing that was actually scripted, and it was again as a result of pretty unfortunate circumstances, and we tried really hard to avoid doing this. But I figured I'd just kind of go through and explain that. So basically, when we record the Stardew Valley Trials, we were recording 2 episodes at a time. So week 1 and week 2, like episodes 1 and episodes 2, they were both recorded on November 6th, just back to back. Episodes 3 and 4 were recorded at the same time, 5 and 6 were recorded at the same time, 7 and 8 at the same time. And that's just logistically, it's really hard to get a large number of people together, especially Sean. I'm going to throw him under the bus. Sean, he was like a nightmare to schedule around. So we were recording episode 5, and that was the one with the what's it called? The Battle Royale. It was the Battle Royale challenge, and that was all fine. Everything was we started recording that. We sit down, we get everyone to download the proper mod and everything like that, and we realize that King Nooblet's not there. Right? We basically had like start time 8 o'clock, whatever it was. Everyone be here. Up until this point, we hadn't had any issues with people being there, but 8 o'clock, Nooblet's not here. It's like waited till like 8:15. He's still not here. We're like adding him, trying to get a hold of him. He's not messaging us in any way. 8:30 rolls around, and eventually we're like, all right, we're just gonna get moving without him, and we're just gonna pull Blade in, I guess, for the whole episode, right? And we'll just say, I don't want to throw Nublet under the bus for just like not showing up if I don't have to. So I'm like, in the production, we'll just say like he's having technical difficulties or couldn't make it to the recording or whatever. I don't even remember what I ended up saying then. And so Blade comes in, and my hope is that honestly he's just gonna be, from a producer standpoint, I'm hoping that he just doesn't win the challenge, doesn't get voted into the elimination, nothing like that happens. I'm kind of just hoping he rides through the middle of the pack, and we're hoping that he just forgot or whatever the deal was, and he'll just show up late, and Blade will play the main challenge for him, and then hopefully he shows up later. But we really couldn't reschedule. The episodes were already coming out at that point, and it's like, honest to God, when I was trying to schedule with people, it's like one day there would be a 3-hour window out of every month that would work for everyone. And so if we didn't, like, if we just rescheduled then because Nublet wasn't here yet, and like we had no confirmation that he wouldn't even be here, So like it would have been like, it would push the whole thing a month back. It would have been like a disaster. So it's like, let's just get going, and he'll probably show up late. He didn't have any, like, we had no reason to think that he wouldn't be there. So we do the Battle Royale challenge. Blade almost wins that, which would have been really annoying to have to deal with, but thankfully he came in second place. and then that's it, right? So I forget who actually ended up winning. I think it was Brandon. I think Brandon won that mask. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Brandon. And so he, ends up getting the golden mask, and Nublet's still nowhere to be found. At this point, it's like 9:30. It's been like an hour and a half. We've gotten no messages from him at all, right? And so it's like, all right, well, we'll continue here. You're just gonna keep, moving forward with, Blade being here. And we finish that, and we finish the battle royale, and Nublet gets voted into the elimination, and it's like, all right, again, not ideal, but thankfully Blade is still here, and Blade can play for him, right? And so they play through the elimination, and it's Habu versus Blade, and they go back and forth a couple of times, and they trade off hands, trade off hands. It's like 1-1, 2-2, 3-3. It goes up to like 6-6 or something like that. And I forget which one of them ended up going first. I think Habu went first, if I remember. So Habu goes. It's tied 6-6. He ended up losing his hand when it was 6-6, and then I think that is shown in the episode as well. But then Blade played his hand, and Blade actually ended up winning. And that means that like Habu is out because Blade went second, right? And at that point, everyone's sitting in the call. We're like, dang, man, that's the end of Habu. That's actually crazy that just happened, right? And we're like, man, that actually kind of stinks because it was, again, like a fairly luck-based thing, right? And we're like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to move on now, Habu. And we're trying to figure out what we're doing, right? Because what is recording next, remember, we're recording the next episode immediately after this, right? And Blade can't stick around. Blade said he's unable to. He's got like a kid, he's got a wife. He couldn't do it anymore. There were no substitutes from anyone at the time. It was impossible to reschedule because even with just those 6 people left, it would have taken us like a month to reschedule. And also at the same time, Nublet still hasn't said anything at this point. He hasn't even mentioned like, hey, sorry, I entirely forgot, I can't make it. We've got nothing from him. So we have no idea. And in my mind, I'm trying to think like, how am I even supposed to logistically like keep this series going right now if Nublet's not here? The next is like the double elimination. So like it kind of sucks when there's a substitute. I'm just kind of hoping they don't get put in the elimination because that's pretty easy for me. But like it's just really starting to shape up to be like a nightmare for me. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? There's like tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people potentially that are like waiting on this episode that, really, really care about this series. I obviously want to keep the competitive integrity of the series as intact as possible. And we just don't know what to do, right? And, I ended up talking with the other competitors about this for a while, and ultimately we just reached the conclusion that it would be better for us, since it was such a close elimination, and since just logistically we had no way of moving forward with the trials if Nublet wasn't here, and we had no idea where he was. And honestly, I felt like I didn't really owe Nublet another chance to stick in the trials after he kind of just, ghosted us for like 2 hours. We just decided ultimately like, hey, this is messing us up so much. We're just going to have to re-edit that last hand of Calico Jack and just have Habu be the winner. And it was totally okay with all the competitors. I was actively trying to think through like solutions of like, how can we not do that? Because that's not fair to the competitors for, who is the best Stardew Valley player to stay in just because the other person wasn't there. But yeah, like I asked the other competitors, they came up with that idea. They said they were okay with it. They understood, just like what a tough position I was in. And also ultimately like the alternative to this that I was coming up with, that I was actually kind of leaning towards myself, was just straight up saying like, hey, Nublet didn't show up. In the episode, we're going to say, hey, Nublet didn't show up. We don't know what happened with him. We have no idea like where he's at. We're just going to cut him from this episode. Like, I'm sorry, you're out of the competition, right? And there was only going to be 7 episodes of the Stardew Valley Trials. We weren't going to do the Battle Royale. We weren't going to do Calico Jack. We were just going to move immediately into the double elimination. And so that was the alternative. And so I figured from a storytelling perspective, and, just for the sake of, I didn't want to throw Nublet under the bus like that. We would have Habu win. Now we start recording the next episode. Nublet eventually does message us back, and he's like, oh, sorry, I overslept. That's what he said initially. He was like, sorry, I overslept. And he was like, am I out? And we were like, yeah, sorry, you're out. We got to keep moving with this. And he was like, all right, I understand. I don't blame Nublet at all. It sounds like I'm like vilifying him a little bit. I don't want anyone to be upset with Nublet at all. I ended up finding out afterwards. He's been open about this, and he's given me permission to share this with people. His mom was diagnosed with cancer, And so he was dealing with that as we were recording, and understandably, recording for the Stardew Valley Trials was not his priority at that moment, and so that's why he wasn't there. And so it was a super duper unfortunate situation that we were in. I I hate that we had to do that because to me the whole appeal of the Stardew Valley Trials was that it was unscripted, and I kept it as fair as possible. And it just kind of stinks, especially now moving on with that. The fact that Habu ended up winning the entire thing at the very end. I hope that doesn't put too much of a blemish on his record. Ultimately, had we just gone with the fact that like we knew Nubel wasn't going to be there, we were just going to cut him out. Habu would have been in the final six anyway. Um, I just figured it was better from a storytelling perspective that Habu wins that round rather than confuse people, rather than cut out a bunch of 2 hours of work that people did, and everything. It just felt like the right answer, and I hope you guys can understand that. I really even hated that. The other creators were even like, hey man, if you just want to like keep this between us, that's all right. But I didn't want, first of all, to ask them to keep anything to themselves, and I wanted you guys to like actually know the full extent of what happened and everything. I feel like you guys deserve to know that. I can absolutely promise you that nothing else was scripted the entire time, even all the way down to like Habu and Lee Chat being the ones to do Junimo Kart. Like I wrote that challenge in like September, and we recorded that in like November or December. Like it was, everything fell into place so beautifully except for that one thing, and it was really unfortunate. It really was. I hope you guys understand that. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna do my best to answer them. Again, it really sucks. I would have obviously preferred to not do that at all. And yeah, I'm sorry that that's kind of how it ended up panning out. I hope that this doesn't diminish from the trials in any way. It was meant to be an entertaining thing. It was meant to be fun, and I still think that it was both of those things. So I appreciate you guys. Again, if you have questions, I will do my best to answer them. But yeah, that's my spiel.